Hey guys, Pole Position RC here for you, and in this video we're going to be taking apart the transmission, the main transmission of the HPI Venture FJ Cruiser. So basically what we're going to be doing is just sealing everything with grease and just making sure that those gears have enough grease in there. So to get at them, basically we're going to take the screws out of the shock mounts on both sides. And those just happen to be the pieces, the screws that also hold on the center where the motor and servo are mounted. So there we go, and we're just going to make sure that we put these screws in the correct place. Now the Venture does have it does come with a complete instruction manual that tell you how to get at the at these pieces that we're getting at, and we're actually using that instruction manual right now to so we know what screws to remove. So if you do kind of get lost, because these screws are slightly different, don't worry, you can use the manual, and it has life-size screw guides, so you know what screws go where, because they are slightly different lengths and you don't want to get them mixed up too badly. So underneath we've got the screw holding on the servo horn. So this is just the main link that connects the servo to the actual steering links. So there we are, and we should be able to lift everything out. Sorry, my bad. We're actually going to have to take off 3 more screws that are holding on the front bumper, because we're going to have to spread the chassis rails out just a bit. So that's the first, well, the second button head screw that we're taking off. That one's fairly easy to remember because it's the only one that we're going to be dealing with like that. So in the instructions, this is already shown removed. So again, we've already taken this off a couple times, well, I have anyway, but recently in another video that you might have seen, when I swapped out the servo here, the stock servo for this servo, I've already taken off the front bumper before. So I'm just going to unplug the winch wires, and so now we should be able to get at this center piece. Nope. There is a screw holding this side here. One of just a few button head screws, and there aren't that many. And so the one that came off the chassis, see, it's just slightly different length. So I'll put that one to this side so I know it's come from there. And there we go. That's everything removed then. So that's the entire power unit. All the electronics and everything right there. Okay. So now we should be able to remove, using these screws, remove the receiver box. And speed controller tray, which has also got the winch control. Yep, it's just those 2 screws, and actually that 3rd screw there that's holding it in place. So I'm going to put these screws over with that screw there. So now that's not absolutely critical to get to the transmission, but that is a pretty clear, you know, you got the pinion gear there, and then the main gear and your slipper clutch there. So let's, first of all, let's just have a look at the pinion location. Now, normally you would be able to get to this just fine with without having to take all this out of the truck. So there we are. It's got a little tongue, well, quite a good groove there to keep dust and main bits of dirt out. But there you go. That's the pinion, and then that's the main gear there. Now that idler gear there, that is the gear that comes out of the Savage XS mini monster truck. And that is the gear, that truck can do like 65 miles an hour with on a 3S battery. It can take all kinds of abuse. Trust me, I've got one. They're awesome. But so you can be pretty certain that that is a very, very strong gear. And you can change it for a higher speed gear as well. So let's see. We've got a bunch of screws holding everything in place here. Just wanting to see what comes off. So I've just taken these 5 screws off that surround the slipper. Longer screw there, got to remember that one. So what I'm doing here is basically I'm just making sure that there's enough grease on these gears, on the internal gears. And it looks like there's a good amount there. Could be a little bit more maybe. But I'm also going to be putting grease around the edges of this the casing and on the bearings, just in case water does get inside, because you never know when you're going to be driving submerged or anything like that. Now the grease that we're going to be using is this stuff here, which I've used on the axles and the center transfer case. This is not the pro marine grease, I'll just say that right now, but it is very thick grease. Resistance to water, cold weather characteristics, resistance to rust and corrosion. It's a chassis and wheel bearing grease for real cars and trucks. And this is not going to be doing the mileage or the speed or the weight loads of anything approaching a real car or truck. So I'm pretty certain that this is going to be totally fine with just this. Okay, so really not concerned about getting a grease gun like I've seen lots of people doing or hearing about, and I'm sure it'll be completely fine. I am going to go a little bit poncy, maybe, and use a glove, because this stuff is so sticky. It's actually really, really hard to get off your fingers and anything else that you've got, unless you just have a sacrificial rag, which I know a rag is just sacrificial, but you know what I mean. Alright, so let's get some grease on these bearings here. Now we've got, I shouldn't have put that on my finger already, because to get at that bearing, which is exposed to water and everything. I'm going to have to get this off. This drive cup, which I previously coated with some grease, and this pin nicely goes all the way through this drive cup. So now it's very important to not lose that drive cup, because that is the only drive cup like it in the kit, and you don't get a spare. So I'm just going to put that back, put the pin next to it, so I can immediately put it back in place. Okay, finally. And you see how messy this is. This gets super, super... I should be wearing a pair of gloves. And, actually, no, I need to put grease on the inside as well. Okay, so I'm just going to use the shaft here, which is the perfect size, obviously, to get that bearing out. See if it'll come out. If it won't, I'm just going to grease it where it is. Using the shaft. And just get grease around the edge. Now I'm not going to be able to make the transmission here completely watertight. The main thing is just helping to prevent corrosion, because if I do drive submerged, the water is going to get into the transmission through the motor anyway. So there's just no way to keep water completely out, but at least it'll be protected for the most part, once if I do get into any water or mud or stream water or anything really bad. Yeah, so the factory setting for the distance between the drive cup and the nut is 1.5 millimeters, and this is a 1.5 mil wrench, and I can just get it in there, and there's a tiny bit of give. I mean, not even the width of a piece of paper, like standard, normal paper. So I'm going to go with that as my slipper clutch setting. And now I can release that, and we're back in one piece. Okay? Yeah, so make sure that there's nothing inside here. Now that I have greased the edges of the transmission here, I'm just going to go ahead and just use my fingers now, because, I'm covered in the stuff anyway. And I'm just going to go ahead and grease this, put a bit more grease on this gear, and then do it on the edges here also. And once I'm done with this and it's back in place, yeah, I'm going to just wipe it all down. Okay, so now there we are. We've got the transmission back together. We've got this top piece here, which I'm just pondering whether I should just leave this ungreased. I'm going to put a little bit of grease around the edges. on this here, because that'll just be slightly, just ever so slightly neater. You can't, this isn't touring car racing, which I used to do a lot of, not with any great skill or luck, but, you know, it's touring car racing and RC crawling, two very different animals. Right, so there we are. You can see once we press down, it's got that like a lip, a goo of grease that comes out these sides where the case pieces are meeting up. So that's it. Now I'm just going to wipe it down just so dirt doesn't collect instantly around this thing. I'm just going to put a bit more grease in this drive cup here because that's a high wear area, I would guess. So there's going to be quite a bit of grease out there. Okay, so there we are. All done, I believe. So just going to plug in and give it a test and hope nothing goes poof. Yep, there we are. Okay, so that's one more thing waterproofed. And I think what am I going to do now? Figure it out, but it'll be next up in the playlist. So, right. So I hope you found that informative. I know it was a little bit long, but maybe a little bit tedious in places, but thanks for sticking with me. If you found that helpful, please give us a thumbs up. Don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions, there's those comment sections down below. So I'll be happy to help out and answer anything I can as quickly as I can. So that's it from me, polepositionrc.com. Check us out on the web and Facebook. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks very much for watching.